gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go. Face in your face. Face in your face.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron. Now, for the benefit of those of you who are not familiar with the channel or watching this channel for the first time, the reason why it is called Uncommon Sense, because here on this platform, we discuss everyday issues where we try to find logical solutions, but not everyone uses logic. I also have another YouTube channel called Latina Diaspora where I discuss issues pertaining to Latinos in the United States. The link to that channel is in the description. I want to let everybody know that I'm currently live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Also, the subscriber mode has been enabled for the first 5 minutes. Meaning, if you're not a subscriber, and if you wish to enter a comment in the chat, you have to have been a subscriber for at least 5 minutes. As always, I want to give a huge shout out to all those who have already subscribed to the channel. Whether you've been a supporter from the very beginning or just recently joined, I really appreciate your love and continued support. I also want to give a huge shout out to all those who follow me on social media, as well as those who allow me to enter in your devices and those who watch from the clouds, even the haters. So what I'm going to ask you to do, you have not done so already, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe, like, and set the bell notifications to all. So therefore, whenever I do produce content, you will have the opportunity to catch it live or catch it on the playback. So as you see on the thumbnail, the topic for tonight is fixing Tier 6. Now, I have been talking briefly regarding Tier 6 for some time. Basically, while if you are a municipal employee working here in New York City, most likely you belong to a particular tier, depending when you're enrolled. Okay, and it has to do with our pension. We have different pensions, different types of tiers, depending on when you're enrolled and when you started working for the city. So what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be addressing the issues as it pertaining to Tier 6 and how we can fix those issues. Okay. I also will be showing some information. Information it will be coming from the nicest website that's New York City employees retirement plan. So I'm going to be sharing some facts regarding Tier 6 and why we need to improve it. Now, before we get into the main topic, we're going to have another episode of In My Words. Now, recently I was speaking with one of my siblings, and one of the questions that was asked, what is my new opinion with Mayor Mondani? And I said that at this point, it would be premature for me to give an opinion, being that he's only held the office for about a month and a half. We need to give him an opportunity um, to see whether or not he achieves any positive results for my fellow New Yorkers. So the civilian commented, "Well, it seems like every federal municipal employee is that ask is the same answer." Well, it's logical. Zohar Mandani became mayor of New York City January 1st. This is February the 15th. Okay, it's literally a month and a half. Um, we need to give everyone, whether it be Mandani or whomever, an opportunity um, to achieve any positive results for their constituency. In this case, New York City residents. Now, there's been some things that he has done which I'm not too crazy about. One of them is not attending the installation of our new Archbishop of New York for the Archdiocese of New York, Archbishop Hicks. That's a big problem with me. Okay, because like it or not, each mayor has had to deal with the archbishop, whether it be the archbishop or cardinal of the archdiocese of New York. So the fact that he was not present at the installation does not speak well. But I'm not going to automatically poo-poo on him. I'm going to give him an opportunity to see if he's able to improve the lives of the New Yorkers. And if he does not, guess what? I'm not going to vote him next time if he decides to run for re-election. Now I know that some of my friends and my some of my fellow YouTube creators have had disagreements with me due to the fact that Mandani is Muslim. And of course, we all have to understand that there are extremists in every group. And one of the things that I've tried to explain is that we need to be careful that we automatically disqualify a person because that person has a different belief system than what we have. Okay. I mean, if you take a look in this country's history, um, we have a long history of trying to disqualify people because they thought differently, they lived differently, they believed differently, or their customs are different. I mean, take a look. Take a look at how we treated the African American community. I mean, for 250 years, we forced them to provide free labor. They were deprived of their identity. They were deprived of everything that made them unique. Not only that, look at how we treated Catholics in the 19th century. I mean, people had a certain revulsion regarding Catholics. Also, look how we treated the so-called indigenous peoples. We violated virtually every treaty that we ever made with them. Okay, and then later on, when we had the Chinese come over here, and then there was anti-Chinese legislation. Uh, my point is this: just because a person has a different belief system does not automatically disqualify them from serving public office. Now, my issue with Islam is that based on what I understand, it appears to be a salvation system based on works, which contradict what the Bible teaches us, that salvation is grace, and by grace you've been saved, not by works that we can boast. That doesn't make Islam a bad religion. It just it just makes it a belief system where I respectfully disagree. So the thing is, when we start disqualifying Muslims from serving public office, we can just easily start to disqualify women. We can easily start to disqualify black people. We can easily start to disqualify uh, mixed people. We can just as easily disqualify people um, of the LGBTQ plus community. Now, I have my disagreements with them. Um, I don't believe anyone is born with a particular sexual orientation. To me, it's a learned behavior. And of course, I believe in what the Bible says when it comes to marriage, that it's between Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Nevertheless, each person has the right to live their lives as they see fit, as long as they don't try to inflict their views on other people. So when it comes to Soham Mandani, I'm going to be patient and I'm going to see how he performs as the city chief executive. And if he doesn't qualify, if he doesn't create positive change for my fellow New Yorkers, he won't get my vote. But it's not going to be because he has a different belief system. It's because he didn't do the job he said he was going to do. And that's how we should judge everybody. We should judge everybody on their character. We should judge everybody on their who they are, not what they believe. Okay. And also, let me make a valid point. Um, for about 300 years, Rome persecuted Christians and made martyrs of them. Why? Because Christians refused to worship the Roman gods and they would not renounce their faith. So we need to be careful about disqualifying people simply because they have a different belief system, or simply because they have a different lifestyle, or simply because they have an orientation which is contrary to what we believe. Everyone has the right to live their life as they see fit. The only stipulation is do not inflict your views on other people. Let's be mutually respectable with everybody, regardless of who you pray to, regardless of who you love, regardless what you believe or don't believe. And if we can just learn that lesson, life will be a lot easier. It'll be a lot less complicated. Okay. And one thing we have to bear in mind, we're living in a society where we have multiple different philosophies, multiple belief systems, multiple political viewpoints. And we all need to be mutually respectable with each other. Unfortunately, what happens is we're living in a situation when people get upset because certain individuals don't practice what they practice. They won't observe what they observe, and it can, and a lot of it has to do with not be able to accept diversity. Okay. One of the things that does make this country great is that we have people from virtually every island and country in the world living within the borders of the United States. I mean, just in New York City alone, you can walk from a Dominican restaurant, a Dominican neighborhood, to a Jewish neighborhood. You can go from a Korean neighborhood neighborhood to a Chinese neighborhood. You can go to a Mexican neighborhood to a Puerto Rican. That's what makes it so beautiful about New York City. Not just New York City, but what makes it beautiful regarding this country is that the level of diversity and we can learn from each other and we can embrace aspects of other people's culture while retaining our own culture. And if more people were able to do that, there'll be less crime, there'll be less discrimination, there'll be less conflict. Let us pray that regardless who we love, regardless of what is our political beliefs. And yes, I am a Christian, and I do hold what the Bible deals with certain topics, particularly when it comes to homosexuality. At the same time, I respect people who choose to live their lives as they see fit. Okay, as long as no one tries to impose their beliefs on anyone, and when everything is said and done, each one of us is going to have to give an accounting for everything that we say and do, and for every time that we should have spoken while we didn't speak. If we were to really take that to heart, we would not be so judgmental on other people simply because they believe differently than we do, simply because they act differently. And that's the whole point. Now, with that being said, we're going to get to the main topic. Now, before I continue, let me just state for the record that the link to join the panel has been pinned. Should anyone wishes to hit that link and opine regarding the topic at hand, they may do so. Let me make this perfectly clear. And I know I've said this every time, and I will continue to say it. If I haven't seen you before, if I haven't heard from you before, I will insist that you come up in the backstage and make sure that no one tries to flash any adult content, which will cause the people of YouTube to take down the stream. Once I determine that you're not going to try that you're going to abide by my guidelines, then I'll let you on the panel. You don't have to cam up. You can just stay behind an avatar. Now, those of you who have been following me for any length of time, from time to time, I have discussed regarding tier 6. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to share my screen, hopefully. Understanding regarding tier 6. But let me just give you a little history behind tier 6. This came into being around 2012, and the person that was responsible for, and I'm going to say it the way I say, inflicting tier 6 on us was Andrew Cuomo, who was the governor of the state of New York at the time. Basically, the circumstances why tier 6 came into being were troublesome. It was basically a late night deal controlled by members of the state assembly and senate. And it is the newest of our attention peers. Now, basically, let me just give you a little bit of background information. Anyone who enrolls in NICERS, that's the New York City Employees Retirement System. That is our system as far as pensions concerned. Now, depending when you enroll into NICERS, will determine what type of tier that you are in. In my case, I'm in tier 4. Now, I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible because it can get a little bit complicated. But let me so what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare my version of tier 4 as compared to tier 6. Now, anyone who joins NICERS, which is the New York City Employees Retirement System, on or after April 1st, 2012, automatically enroll in tier 6. Okay. Now, what are the exceptions? Of those who are in members of the Uniform Force of the New York City Department of Correction and members of the Uniform Force of the New York City Department of Sanitation, and investigators employed in a district attorney's office. Now, here in New York City, we are divided within 5 zones called boroughs. So each borough has its own district attorney's office. Manhattan has the New York District Attorney Office. Bronx has the Bronx District Attorney. Queens, Staten Island, and Brooklyn. Okay. So basically, once you join after April 1st of 2012, you're automatically placed in tier 6. Now, I'm going to give you what is the big stickling point when it comes to contributions. Now, as you can see by the display, the contributions is not fixed at one general percentage, regardless of annual salary. Okay, let me just give you an example. If you earn as a municipal employee up to $45,000 a year, your contribution rate is 3%. Now, once you start making more than $45,000 a year, up to $55,000 a year, your contribution rate is 3.5%. Now, once you start making more than $55,000 a year to $75,000 a year, your contribution rate is 4.5%. And then for those municipal employees who make over $75,000 a year to $100,000 a year, your contribution rate is 5.75. And if for some employees, yes, there are employees that make over $100,000 a year, your contribution rate is 6%. So that is the first major issue. There's not a flat contribution rate as compared to tier 4. Now I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible, but just to illustrate the difference. I'm in tier 4. I actually joined NICERS in early 2000. So When I joined NICERS, I was automatically placed in Tier 4. So I had to make 2 contributions for the first 10 years. First one was 3%, regardless of what was my annual salary at the time. And I will contribute 3% of my salary for the first 10 years. And then I'll have make a second contribution of 1.85%. Now, once I completed 10 years of pension service, the 3% contributions ended. But the 1.85% contribution continued, and it will continue until I retire or otherwise separate from municipal service. That's one of the differences between tier 4 and tier 6. That's a big issue. So one of the issues, and one that we're definitely addressing, is the fact that contributions should be based on a flat percentage, regardless of what your annual salary is. And I'm gonna explain to you the big advantage why. First of all, that means that you'll be taking more take-home money. Okay, regardless of whatever is your salary will be. That is one issue. That's one issue. Another issue is that not all of your pay overtime, gets factored into your pension. Now, let me just explain. Again, I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. Okay. Now, one of the things that's common with tier 4 as compared to tier 6 and tier 6 is that when you retire, it is based on your last 3 years of pension service. So what they do is they take your last 3 years, and depending how long you've been working for the city, multiply by a certain percentage, and then they will give you like your average salary, and then based on the number of years and based on a certain percentage, will give you your pension. Now, what many municipal employees would do, particularly when they're getting close to retirement, what they will try to do, if possible, is they will work overtime for cash. The reason why they do that is that so that their pension will be bigger. Okay? Because when you retire, you will retire with your pension and your Social Security. So what some employees would do is try to work overtime, a lot of overtime. Because the more overtime they make, the more it will be factored into your pension. Another issue with tier 6 is not all of your overtime gets factored into your pension. So think about it. You are in a situation, maybe because you were dealing with the migrants, or maybe there was a situation where you're in an environment when you have to do a great deal of overtime, and you just and you're given the option to do it for cash, and you opt for do it for cash. You think of all that you think about all that money you're making, and the fact that not all that overtime money gets factored into your pension. That would be upsetting for a lot of municipal employees. And this is the second inequity as it pertains to Tier 4 as to Tier 6. As a Tier 4 employee, I can make as much cash overtime as, no, up to I reach my cap. And then all that overtime will factor into my pension. It's not the same with Tier 6. So that's the second inequity that has to do with Tier 6. Now this is an example, just to illustrate how much you have to pay, you have to contribute based on different rates. So just think about it, just to give you an idea. Imagine contributing $3,240 a year because your salary was $70,000 a year. Now, let me make this perfectly clear. To make $70,000 a year, you have to be working for the city for a considerable number of years, and also based on your civil service type. Now, another issue when it comes to Tier 6 is that in order to be entitled to a full pension, you have to be at least 63 years old. Okay. Now, in my version of Tier 4, which is 57.5, I was eligible for a full pension once I hit my 57th birthday. That was over 6 years ago. Okay. If I was a Tier 6 employee, I would just be reaching the age where I've been getting a pension, a full pension now. So let me just break it down. What happens if you decide to retire before reaching 63? Okay. Like, for example, let's say you decide to retire at age 55. Now, it could be because maybe you have a medical issue, what have you, or maybe you decide to work somewhere else. Your pension will be reduced 52%, which means basically half. If you decide to retire at 56, your pension benefit will be reduced by 45.5%. That's a big reduction. If you decide to retire at 57 at Tier 6, your retirement benefit would be reduced by 39%. If you decide to retire at 58, your retirement benefit would be reduced by 32.5%. If you decide to retire at age 59 under Tier 6, your retirement benefit would be reduced by 26%. If you decide to retire at age 60 under Tier 6, your retirement benefit will be reduced by 19.5%. If you decide to retire at age 61 under Tier 6, your retirement benefit will be reduced by 13%. If you decide to retire at age 62, which is the earliest age where you can get Social Security, albeit at a reduced benefit, your benefit will be reduced by 6.5%. So in other words, in order to get a full pension at Tier 6, you have to be at least 63 years old. Now, people say, well, it's okay because people are living healthier. Yeah, people are living healthier, but that's assuming that you're doing everything that you can to maintain a healthy lifestyle. And maybe you don't want to work until you're 63. Maybe you just want to, do something else. So okay, now I'm going to explain to you how your pension is calculated, and I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. If you have less than 20 years of credited pension service, for every year, okay, you'll take your annual your final average salary, which is the average of your last 3 years. Multiply that by 1.67% times the numbers of years of accredited service. And for those who have 20 or more years of accredited pension service, now this is where it gets 35% of your final average salary for the first 20 years, plus 2 times each year credits exceeding 20. So, and then there's some questions regarding, military services, things of that nature. I'm not going to give you all the details. I just want to give you the basic information, and now I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. So let me just do this. Okay. So that kind of explained to you in a rather simplified way the issues as it pertains to Tier 6. Number one, your contribution rate varies. Number two, not all your pension, not all your cash overtime gets factored into your pension. And number three, in order to retire with a full pension, you have to work until you're 63 years old. As compared to Tier 4, I was eligible for a full pension 6 years ago, and technically, if I want to retire now, I can do so because I'm eligible for a full pension. I'm eligible for reduced Social Security. Plus, I have a 401k, which I started years ago when I was doing all the time. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, this pension tier sucks. So what we got to do about it? Well, on Wednesday, March the 4th, hundreds of members of DC 37, which is District Council 37, will go up to Albany for the day for an event called Lobby Day. What's the whole purpose? Is to speak with politicians regarding issues that we are concerned about. The big issue has to do with fixing Tier 6. Okay. Now my local has been successful in some areas. Okay. One area has been that when Tier 6 was created, they determined the final average salary was based on the average of the 5 years. So now it's based on 3. Right now, what we are doing is attempting to address the fact that we should have one flat contribution rate, regardless of your annual income. So as you can see here, if your income is this amount, the contribution is this much. If it's this amount, it's now the reason why because we believe contributions should be based on a flat percentage. If you do on a flat percentage, that means guess what, folks? You're going to be able to take home more money, okay? And we all know for a fact everything has gone up. The groceries has gone up, food has gone up. Rent has gone up, transportation has gone up, utilities has gone up. So the fact that if we're able to create a flat contribution rate, meaning that those who are in Tier 6 will get to take home more than money. So what we're going to do is on Wednesday, March the 4th, we're going to leave from DC 37 to go to Albany, speak to our politicians regarding Tier 6, and try to encourage them to make the contributions more equitable. Now, one thing that does work in our favor is that many of the politicians, which is basically those who are in the state assembly and the state senate, most of them are in Tier 6. So that means if they convince the governor to create a flat contribution rate, not only will it benefit us as union people, but it will also benefit them. And considering the fact they make more money than we do. So that is. So that is our strategy. We're going to go up to Albany on March the 4th, on a Wednesday. Speak with our politicians and make sure that they listen to us and encourage them to do what's needed to address the inequities of Tier 6. Now, one problem that many of us have been dealing with, that the people who are in Tier 6, they're not taking this issue seriously. And one of the problems is they're not looking at things 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road or even 15 years down the road. They're looking at the now. Now, let me make this perfectly clear. I'm not saying all Gen Z people are like this, nor all millennials are like this. However, quite a few, they have problems looking at the future. And many of them thinking, oh, I'm only going to be working for the city for a couple of years, and then once I get something better, I'll leave. Do you know how many people I've known that said the same thing, that they're only going to be working for the city for a couple of years, only to find out that they've been working for the city of New York 20, 25, 30, 40, 50 years? Okay. All we can do is impress on the younger generation the importance of taking this seriously, because the reality is this: they're gonna become our age. They're gonna reach the 50s and 60s, and they're gonna start thinking about retirement. And people say, "Well, I'll think about retirement when it gets close to this time." Actually, you can think about retirement even in your 30s or even your 20s. Okay, because you have to look at it in this way. Because once you retire, you're going to have to live on your pension and your social security. Those of you who took advantage and opted to enroll in deferred compensation, whether it be um, that or a 401k, you'll do you'll be better off. But worst thing you can do is not plan for your retirement, and then you find out that your pension's not enough, and that your social security is not enough, and then you have to go back in the workforce as someone in your 70s or even 80s, because you didn't plan. That's something that is a challenge. Um, for those of us who are involved in the fight to fix Tier 6, because basically many of us who are um, actively involved are in Tier 4. I mean, there are some people, thank goodness, that are taking this seriously, and they're doing what they can, help encourage other members who are in Tier 6 to think of, to take this issue seriously. All we can do is our best, okay? And truth be told, I'll be perfectly honest. I mentioned this before. Eventually, I'm going to retire. So, and I'm not in Tier 6. I'm in Tier 4. However, I am concerned for the younger municipal employees who are in Tier 6, and also anyone else that's thinking about working for the city of New York. And the fact that you don't have a flat contribution rate in your pension tier, that could be a big problem in trying to find um, people who wish to pursue a career um, working for the city of New York. And let me make this perfectly clear. You're not gonna have a rich lifestyle as a municipal employee. I mean, if you have a bachelor's degree, um, depending on what your civil service title, you'll probably start making in your mid 40s, okay, or maybe in your low 50s, depending what the ten, but depending on what civil service title you have, and many of those civil service titles requires a bachelor's degree. But I will say this: while you may not be making a whole great deal, making money in the private sector, you will get medical coverage. You will get opportunities for promotion. You don't have to pay any medical copays. You have access to medication. Um, Also, you will have opportunities for promotion. Also, once you belong to a union, you'll have due process and other benefits which is afforded to you um, belonging to a union and also belonging, being a municipal employee. So that is my spiel regarding Tier 6. And of course, I, as a union rep, I'm going to do everything in my power to try to encourage more and more of our younger members to think about going to Albany, or at least be more mindful regarding Tier 6 and the fact to let them know that we are actively trying to address the inequities. And for those of you who have issue with Mondani, this was a big factor why many municipal employees could not in their heart of hearts support Andrew Cuomo as mayor, because basically he shoved Tier 6 down our throats, and his talk about creating more housing, well, he had an opportunity to do so when he was the governor of the state of New York, and that did not happen. And my reason for not supporting Andrew Cuomo has to do with Tier 6, and has to do with him, you know, cooking the books as it pertained to the COVID-19 deaths in the nursing homes. It had nothing to do with the allegations of sexual harassment, which my understanding he was exonerated. It does that. I, in my heart of hearts, could not support Andrew Cuomo. And of course, there's rumors that he may be running for Senate. If he is, good luck. That's all I'm going to say. But we shall see. We shall see. Now, I will start to wrap this up. Now, I will be talking about, since we're entering into Lent Wednesday, I'll be talking about Lent tomorrow on my other channel. I will be on most likely 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So I'm just going to share with you what's the meaning of Lent, some of the practices that we will participate in, and things of that nature. I do hope that you enjoyed this discussion as it pertaining to fixing with Tier 6. And of course, the playback end, you're more than welcome to leave whatever comments that you wish. Or as is, please keep it respectable. Okay, we can disagree, that's fine. But if you get nasty, your comments are going to be deleted. It is that simple. And of course, we're going to close the same way that we always close. We must do everything to do so. We will be infected by the stupidity of insanity. And of course, whatever we say or do, we should do for the glory of God. And with that being said, I just want to say, I know it's late, but happy belated Valentine's Day to everyone, whether you be in a romantic relationship or not. And happy President's Day, because tomorrow is President's Day. So I hope you're enjoying the rest of your weekend. Hope you find it restful as we get ready for the new week. So with that being said, I will wish all of you a good night. Stay blessed, take care, and peace.